Let me be very, very clear at the outset. When Jews assert that they are a chosen people, as indeed we do, that is never ever meant in any sense that we feel ourselves superior to anybody. There is no sense in the Jewish people's chosenness doctrine, any sense whatsoever that anybody else is inferior. For us, what it means to be a chosen people has always meant a sense of mission, a sense of responsibility. Let me share with you, just before I go any further, some of the words that you can find in the Jewish prayer book. I think that the whole direction of Jewish self-understanding has always meant that Jews, as a chosen people, must work to eliminate oppression in the world, must work to raise the standards of justice, must work to express compassion for all underprivileged, for all people who are in need of help, to be part of the priestly people, the Jewish people, means a Jew must be philanthropic, must be compassionate, must be bound by the yoke of Torah, as we say. This is the way one of the morning services that Jews have in the prayer book begins.
So, good morning, Africans. Wherever you are, I salute you. Good morning. Yeah, it might not be good morning where you are, but I still say good morning. So, today I want us to discuss about a video that I think is worth discussing. It's a video about the concept of the chosen ones. You understand? You know, many times the Bible has indicated that the Jews, the Israelites, are the chosen ones of Christ, of God. You understand? Because in many things, the Bible is all about the Jews. In fact, the Bible separates its audience into two: the Jews and the Gentiles. And we understand the relationship that exists between God and the Jews, and why they are called the chosen one. The Jews are all grandchildren of Abraham. Abraham gave birth to Isaac. Isaac gave birth to Jacob. Jacob had the 12 sons. These 12 sons of Jacob are the ones who have built up the Jew nation that we know today. You understand? It was up to until 1945 that the country that today is known as Israel was formed. And so they are really the chosen ones as per the Bible. I'm not saying this to make anyone happy, but as to what was written in the Bible, they are really the chosen one. And sometimes the concept of being called the chosen one might be misunderstood. Sometimes the concept of being called the chosen one might be misused by so many people. They might do things which are not really right in the name of they are the chosen ones, and these things can be affecting, can be very, very effective in dispensing evil. You understand? Because right now what we know happens in the Middle East, I don't want to call its name in this channel, or rather in this video. What we know that is happening there is all in the name God gave us this because we are his chosen one. Maybe the concept of chosen one is what we really don't understand, and I want us to watch this video and truly understand who is really a chosen person, who qualifies to be called the chosen, and if the Jews are called the chosen, what is the definition? What is the meaning? What is the concept of being called the chosen one? So to understand this and to answer this question, let's watch this video. I'll give you my thoughts by the end of the video.
I am genuinely pleased to be here today. I came in response to an invitation to participate in a commemoration of Martin Luther King's birthday. This day has become an ever increasingly important day to all Americans who are concerned with the principles of justice and democracy and fairness to all people who live in America. Martin Luther King was one of the great Americans whose birthday deserves national attention. It deserves to be regarded as a national holiday, and I'm one of those who would certainly promote its establishment as an official legal holiday. I think that recalling the message of his life and the burden of his death calls all of us to work ever harder for increased appreciation of one another, for the gifts we have, and for the opportunity to make this country what it is meant to be, a country of freedom and justice for all. We were asked today to talk about who and what is the chosen people. That's a theological category. It's the chosen people doctrine is an article in the belief system of the Jewish people. It's a doctrine of belief which is important for Jews to understand, and I think it's important for non-Jews to understand as well. Let me be very, very clear at the outset. When Jews assert that they are a chosen people, as indeed we do, that is never ever meant in any sense that we feel ourselves superior to anybody. There is no sense in the Jewish people's chosenness doctrine, any sense whatsoever that anybody else is inferior. For us, what it means to be a chosen people has always meant a sense of mission, a sense of responsibility. Let me share with you, just before I go any further, some of the words that you can find in the Jewish prayer book. I think that the whole direction of Jewish self-understanding has always meant that Jews, as a chosen people, must work to eliminate oppression in the world, must work to raise the standards of justice, must work to express compassion for all underprivileged, for all people who are in need of help. To be part of the priestly people, the Jewish people, means a Jew must be philanthropic, must be compassionate, must be bound by the yoke of Torah, as we say. This is the way one of the morning services that Jews have in the prayer book begins. Of course, a lot of our prayers use Hebrew, but let me share it with you in English. The service begins like this. And now, O Israel, what is it that the Lord your God demands of you? To revere the Lord our God, to walk always in his ways, to love and serve him with heart and soul. And now, therefore, if you will truly keep my covenant, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, a holy people. Her expanding notion of what it would mean to be a Jew. I think there are ups and downs in it. For instance, it's pretty clear that although my people 3,000 years ago, 3,200 years ago, were slaves in Egypt, I mean, it's awfully clear to me that the Jews who 4 generations after Abraham left the promised land and went to Egypt in a time of famine became imprisoned and became slaves. I have to tell that story because it's very important in Jewish self-consciousness, that our people really formed into a people during that time of slavery. For several hundred years we lived in Egypt and were slaves, building the monuments of Egyptian society, until Moses, one of the greatest of all the Jewish leaders ever, came along and A fabulous personality, a genius, a spiritual genius, a giant among all human beings in the world, inspired by his dedication to God, knowing that it was terrible for any people to be oppressed, and certainly knowing that it was terrible for his own people to be oppressed, led them forth from their slavery in Egypt, led them through the wilderness in Sinai, led them to Mount Sinai, and presented them with a code for behavior. That code for behavior, which we're inclined to call the Torah, the teachings, is epitomized often as the Ten Commandments, but it's far more than that. It would be all right if people would follow those Ten Commandments. That might be a good start. But there's far more to Judaism and far more to following after God than just keeping the Ten Commandments. But Moses formed up this Jewish people not as a band of ex-slaves, but as a band of people who would be dedicated to serving God. Serving God through certain customs and ceremonies, to be sure. Thank you.
Excuse me. If you have to leave, you can leave right now in between the breaks. 5 seconds. This is the last speaker. If you get out of hand, I'm going to ask you to leave. Okay, it gives me great pleasure again to introduce Mr. Zeb Garber.
One of the advantages of following another speaker who presents his opinion about a certain religious tradition is that I do not have to retrace some of the concepts that were presented in the name of Judaism, and consequently would have the freedom, as it were, to develop other notions which might not have been able to have been developed effectively in the course of a general presentation regarding the topic Judaism as Jews understand that religion to be a chosen people. Let me begin with a certain apology and also a very important position that I must take. What you're going to hear for the next 40 minutes is one man's opinion about Judaism. What you're going to hear is one man's understanding of a religious heritage that flows in my very veins and in my very bones that goes back metaphorically 4,000 years. What you're going to hear in the next 40 minutes is only one person's understanding of a religious heritage to which he was born into, and also a religious civilization which this individual, namely myself, has chosen to have as my lifestyle until the day I leave this world. What you're going to hear is going to be a little disturbing to some, and what you're going to hear articulates, it might not be what you want to hear as representative of Judaism. I can only say in my opening remarks that this is my own opinion, these are my own feelings, and from that point of view, I would expect that you would respect what I have to say, for it's one man's viewpoints, one man's thinking process that's going forth. Rabbi Jerry Goldstein made reference to a significant holiday of the Jewish year referred to as Yom Kippur. He also made reference to a concept referred to as Teshuvah. The concept of Yom Kippur, 24 books of the Hebrew Bible, is a very strange message. It tells the story of a certain Jew by Jonah, his name, to go to a people referred to as the Assyrians. The Assyrians were a classic people of the ancient Near East, and among their accomplishments, they were able to stomp out and step upon, to use the terminology which I feel comfortable with today, to snuff out different civilizations and different peoples. The Assyrians were also the great destroyers of my people's ancient past. If there is a small Jewish people today, it is because Jews in the course of history, and Jews wherever geographical space they were able to inhabit, were exposed to and thus victimized by crusades, inquisitions, exterminations, and in our own recent memory, the greatest destruction ever inflicted upon any people, the Holocaust. And between 1933 and 1945, the slaughter of 1/3 of my people, called the Jews, as the world participated either actively or not actively, and thus were complacent to the greatest murder ever recorded in recorded history. The Assyrians destroyed 10 of the 12 tribes of ancient Israel. If there are Jews today, it is because 1 or 2 of these tribes were able to manage and able to survive. But the Assyrians were the great Nazis of their day, and they destroyed 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel. And consequently, on this particular day of Yom Kippur, the Jew reads a book. It's a book which is very simple. It's a book which consists only of 4 chapters. It is a book of a Jew who's told to go to Assyria and to preach this very term that Jerry introduced, namely teshuvah. I personally feel the history of the Jewish people, and let this be known as factual, and it's not myth. The Jews are mankind's longest surviving people with a continuous history. There's no other people in this world who has a continuous memory as the Jewish people has. And maybe for that reason, if the world no longer has a Jew, the world would be dwarfed in absence of the presence of a consciousness called the Jews. It doesn't mean that the Jews are superior, and it doesn't mean that the Jews are inferior. It simply means that the Jews have something about themselves which they take self-pride in. And that something, if you will, has been contributed to mankind. What does it say to me, this chosen people business? It says, hey, I'm important. It says, hey, I've got pride. It says, hey, I've got a heritage. It says, I am meaningful. I'm not just another number, another face in the crowds. If the other cannot respond to it, that is his problem or her problem. It ought not be my problem. On the blackboards, I put several terms. The self and the other, the I and the is. I am the self, if you will, because I'm talking from my vantage points. When I respond to the other, I do not think. Some of you are Gentiles. By this I mean you come from a non-Jewish background. And this type of rhetoric sounds too militant, maybe, sounds too weird, too off the board. You don't know Jews who talk this way. Jews do talk this way, and the tragedy is the Jews ought to impress their messages upon others. Because if you want a track record that's able to survive, it is this type of Jewish mentality. It doesn't mean that the Jew is superior, nor does it mean that the Jew is inferior. All he's saying by all this rhetoric is, I am just as important as you. And by saying that, he helps himself and has the obligation. Jacob has his curses. From the birth until the end, every significant episode about the patriarch Jacob is introduced by a curse. Jacob masters the curse, converts it into a blessing. Try to follow me right now. The paragon of Jacob is very, very important for me. It's very important for Jews. They call themselves after Jacob. They call themselves Israel. Jacob is first Israel. When his name is changed, your name will no longer be Jacob. It will be called Israel. When Jacob, called Israel, occurs, you have to understand what happens. I'm not going to be scientific because I can't be scientific. But at the same time, however non-rational I might sound to all of you, Zev Garber is not anti-rational about the reference of the God of Israel. Jews cannot have that opinion, cannot have that position, in my opinion, because of the historical awareness of Jews that the all-powerful God and the God of promises can oftentimes be embarrassed by questions of how is it that the innocent seem to suffer, and how isn't it that Holocaust seems to occur to every little Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob being destroyed the way they were. Because to take that position from a Jewish point of view would imply that God and the devil, as it were, Hitler and others, are handshakes together, are partners in the destruction of innocence. Hence, I feel comfortable with that teaching of Judaism, which is the very root of what we're talking about, that says you're not an amen-sayer of God's, that says that God creates the imperfect world and it's man's job to make it perfect, which says that man and God are partners. God did his job. Man, you now do your job. That says that God creates and man redeems, that de-emphasizes the creed and plays up the deeds, that that's the bottom line. You fight with gods. You hear the phrase Israel. Fighting with man and also constantly fighting with gods. And because you know that you're valuable, in the end, you prevail. You want to know something, people? That's what God wants. And when you don't fight with gods, then you ain't doing your Jewish thing. Am Yisrael. If there's one phrase you'll learn from my rhetoric, it's this phrase. The nation Israel. Call Jews what you want. Kikes, Makis, Jews. They've been known by all kinds of names. The one name that people, so to speak, aren't aware of, that is pristine, that is original, is this phrase transliterated into English, as Am Yisrael. You are a nation, Israel. You're a people. You are the people that fights with man and fights with God. The word Am, dear people, if I write it in Hebrew, also spells out the Hebrew phrase together and with, togetherness. What is a Jew? It is the sum total of religion, culture, spiritual, physical, national, ethnic, everything. Togetherness makes Israel. And it's that unity of diversity, which is what I understand to be the chosen concept, and why Jews have the track record that they do. Jews are mankind's eternal people.
Now, after we've watched this video, you can tell that the concept of being called the chosen one has been deliberately manipulated to fit into the narrative of operation. You understand? Being called the chosen one is a concept of responsibility. Is a concept that God has entrusted you with something to take care of his people. This is the concept of the chosen one. God has enlightened you in some way. He has shown you his favor so that you can be a good steward towards his people. And this is what the rabbi, the brother, the white brother has said. If you noticed, we also had Khalid Muhammad in the same meeting. You understand, Khalid Muhammad might be having very radical ideas about about Jews, but the concept of being called chosen one should not make someone feel like they are superior over another person. No, being called a chosen one is being showed God's grace, is being told that indeed God has seen that you have it in you to take care of his people. Because when God made us, he made us all in the image and the likeness of himself. You understand? Remember I told you we had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob had a twin brother actually. His name was Esau. We don't know much about what happened to Esau, but we know that Esau gave birth to children. We know that Jacob had the 12 sons, which are the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, they also went all the way to slavery in Egypt. Because they sinned, God punished them. This can tell you that God is not biased. God is not showing someone favor over another one. No. God judges by your works. If you do wrong, he punishes you. If you do right, he rewards you. We've seen this many times. These are not just my mere words. These are true. Now, being called a chosen one does not make you any special than any other person. These Jews who are called the chosen one have passed through the difficult times. Remember, in the times of slavery in Egypt, remember what happened? It took the grace of God and the stewardship of Moses to come and help them get out of slavery. Even though they were the chosen one, they were still enslaved because somewhere in the middle, they did something wrong. And also remember what happened in the Auschwitz. What happened in the Auschwitz with the Nazi, it's called the Jew Holocaust. It's one of the worst things that has ever happened to the Jew people. These are long things that have happened. You remember the Jews are always fighting their neighbors back there where they live. What does this tell you? It tells you, it really reinforces the idea of chosen one. Being called a chosen one does not make you special over another person. No. The same favor God shows them, the same favor God shows us. You know, in as much as they denied Jesus Christ, because they really denied Jesus Christ, we the Gentiles accepted Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a Jew, and when he was a Jew, he was denied by the fellow Jews, and he came for the Gentiles. You understand? So whoever believes in Jesus Christ is equivalent to the Jew people who are chosen one. So we are also chosen under the cover, under the umbrella of the Son of the Most High God, Jesus Christ. That is my interpretation of what the brother said. You might be having other interpretations of what the brother said. Do remember to share your thoughts on the comment section of what your interpretation is. I'll be glad to discuss it further with you. This is Evans from Kenya. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more interesting and educative videos like this. See you in the next video.